Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be covering a weapon developed by the Hin people of the Forgotten Realms, arising from their homeland in the southern coast of Faerun, the nation of Lurin. I will answer what it is exactly, how it evolved into its current form, the real-world proof that this fantastic bit of gear is entirely possible, and by the end of the video, I'll give you the exact tools to fit the weapon, its use, and its game mechanics easily and seamlessly into your Dungeons & Dragons experience. Also, you'll learn a fascinating and wonderful new sporting activity which I think deserves a lot more attention, perhaps a place eventually in the Olympic Games. Today it's time to discover the Halfling segmented pole. As you may already have noted, it's not exactly a pole. It's normally carried and configured as a form of spear or light lance. And it's important to keep in mind the proportions and physical capabilities of the hobbits. So let me start off with a little bit of science here. Hobbits are the size of human children, but they are a hardy and robust folk who are well known to be expert farmers with prodigious appetites and a certain fearless strength to them that in many ways rivals the amazing constitution of the Dwarven people. A halfling community is patrolled and protected by a relatively loose organisation of wardens, who act very much like a constabulary, emergency militia, and as rangers who operate in all types of weather and all types of terrain. When you look at the strengths of halflings and gnomes, they are capable of lifting well over their own body weight with far less effort than it would take a human to do the same thing with their own weight. And in reality, if one were to get into a wrestling match with a halfling or gnome, a human would not fare much better than if they were trying to go hand to hand with an angry chimpanzee, which is to say, not very well at all. The same could be said when comparing the actual strength of an orc to a human. Even a teenage orc girl would make short work of Mike Tyson in a boxing ring, as they should, according to biological science, have twice the strength of any human being. But it is what it is. I'm not here to reinvent the game. It's sufficient to say that what I'm about to describe to you is not just humanly possible, it's something that would be easy for any halfling or gnome to achieve. So, let's travel to planet Earth for a moment, and I'll encourage you to investigate for yourself the Canary Islands and the Shepherd's Leap. There are a few YouTube shorts where you can swiftly see, in moments, exactly what I'm about to talk about. Using a 2 to 4 meter long pole with a metal tip and some goat fat, a person can drop from an 8 meter or 26 foot cliff, jamming the pole known as the garrote into the ground below and sliding down the pole, arresting their fall safely. This traditional technique evolved from shepherds needing to navigate rugged terrain with a lot of rocky areas and cliffs. The shepherd's leap, along with pole vaulting and wall scaling or chasm crossing methods, are all part of their training. The garrote was actually a lance, much too heavy to be used like a thrown spear, but as you will see, it really is a unique form of exotic weapon and a very handy tool. And I'm sure it would be far more popular with adventurers in the Forgotten Realms if it was more widely known. So, let's travel back to planet Toril and learn about their use and how they came to be. When travelling through the lands of Lurin and the southern coast of Faerun, one may see the local Hin people, the hobbits, that call the Forgotten Realms their home, carrying very long and sturdy spears with a metal spike on one end. For a human, the proportions are similar to what is a light lance. It's not made for jousting, not tapered to like that. It's more like a staff with a metal tip on it. When a halfling is riding on a dog or goat or walking along the path, they will rest the lance hold it just behind the metal tip with the long shaft of the spear resting on their shoulder. If you take a closer look at the spear and their hands, you'll see that the shaft of the spear is coated with a slick varnish and shining coat of goat fat, making it very slippery and smooth, and the hands of these halflings are strong and calloused from day after day carrying the long lance around. While the long spear can be used in battle formations to defend groups of hobbit militia in times of war, used exactly like a pike, that is not what they are carried for. They're actually used to perform a remarkable feat called the Shepherd's Leap. When a ranger or shepherd comes to the edge of a steep rock ledge or cliff, they point the metal tip over the edge toward the bottom of the drop, grip the other end of the spear, and leap off the edge. When the point of the spear digs into the loose soil, stones and rock below, they slide down the spear, their hands protected by the slippery goat fat, which breaks their fall gently, and they land safely at the base of the cliff, almost like they'd cast the fifth fall spell on themselves. The Hin also practice this as a sport, learning it and practicing it from a young age that allows them to navigate the rough terrain that you would swear was damn near impassable without a pair of wings on your back. If this sounds a bit far-fetched, I encourage you to type the Canary Islands Shepherd's Leap and see what this ancient and very clever practice is quite real and performed to this day, keeping the ancient tradition alive by turning it into a sport. It's basically a reverse pole vault, but skilled rangers and shepherds use the poles in both ways, and they're also very skilled at laying the poles across gaps, chasms and such, then running across the pole using it like a bridge. To add this seamlessly into your Dungeons & Dragons game, I've crafted a feat that you can select for an Origin or Druid or Ranger class feat called Shepherd's Leap, but we'll get into the specifics of that in a moment. Naturally, longer poles are desirable for this activity, but carrying around a very long pole for folk who are half the height of a human can be a bit of a bother. So they came up with a solution of segmenting the pole into sections that neatly screw together and are hollow to reduce the weight. The shepherds also figured that a standard size for a pole's girth was very important, because sometimes you'd need to combine these sections and make a very long pole to cross much wider gaps or check dangerously high drops from cliff tops, drops that you wouldn't believe anyone could survive if they just leapt off the edge like they do. Now, the hobbits also realised that the hollow sections of these spears were very handy for keeping things like fishing lines and hooks, a little tube full of brandy, a cloth and tubes for goat fat for greasing the pole, and all sorts of other handy items. This is the origin of the halfling segmented pole. There's almost no end to the things that can be stored in the slim tube of the pole segments, even doses of healing potion, vials of acid or holy water. I'll leave the filling of these spaces to the imagination of your players, though I will say it's a great way to safely store the explosive or quite unstable magical crossbow bolts. Okay, crafting a feat for this involves looking at what other options are available for player characters at the first levels of experience, and we see there are quite a few magic options for the character classes, so we want the feat to be seen as worthwhile, as it's quite an important factor. The feats are a lot more comprehensive in the latest edition of the game, and so the qualities and capabilities of a character who takes the Shepherd Leap feat represent someone who has spent a lot of time training and using the ability until they can perform movement actions that are what I would imagine an Olympic level athlete would be if they were actually widespread and popular enough to be known as well known as pole vaulting is. I will include the full feat in the description below and in the video, and it'll also pop it up on the screen here for you. As you can see, the Shepherd's Leap is formatted in the same style as the other 2024 D&D feats. It could be an origin feat, meaning it's part of the character's cultural upbringing, or part of a ranger or druid class character training. It's not exclusive to halflings, gnomes or elves, but they tend to have the skill more often than humans or others do. Since it's quite a physical feat, it includes the standard attribute bonus option of either +1 to strength or dexterity. It's your choice, but remember, your attribute can't go higher than 20 points. You gain familiarity in the use, both utility and combat use, in pikes, spears, 10-foot poles and quarterstaffs, including those that are a lot longer than usual, so the overall length of it should be around twice the height of the character using it. For halflings, that's no change at all from any human-made in proportion spears and quarterstaffs. For an elf or human, the length would be around 12 feet or 3.5 meters. Another good reason to segment the pole and make it more manageable lengths. When assembled, the pole can be used to make high jumps or pole vaults up to 4 times the character's normal jumping height, or 4 times their long jump distance. We call this aspect Shepherd's Mobility. And for the special cliff leaping aspect, let's call that the Shepherd's Descent, and give the character the ability to plummet 120 feet or 36.5 meters, safely arresting their fall by digging the tip into the ground and sliding the pole to land without any injury. I think for a non-magical option, this is quite an advantage and perfectly suited for halfling, gnome or elven rangers or druids, but an argument could be made for a rogue character who grew up in a big city like Waterdeep or Baldur's Gate, using the same technique to climb, vault and leap from rooftops, over walls and across canals, making them damned hard to chase and very good at getting into properties that they should not be getting into or easily out of. Remember, you can fit all sorts of things into the segmented pole. Adding a saw blade or a hook to the end of one can be very useful, or even a grabber claw that is closed and opened by way of a cord going down the inside of the tube, the pole. You thought a 10-foot pole was handy for dungeon delving? Well, they're a poor substitute for a well-crafted segmented pole from the lands of Lurin. I do hope that this is useful to you and you do include it in your games, but as always, your table, your rules. I'm just here to provide some inspiration and the occasional clever idea. Being a sneaky dire hobbit, it's what I do. My name is AJ Pickett. If you want to learn a whole lot more about halflings, check out the link on the screen to the first couple of comprehensive videos on the hobbits of the Forgotten Realms. Thanks for listening, and as always, I'll be back with more for you very soon. But before you go, here's a bit of music for you about the Rangers and Wolves.
The hobbits leap from cliffs so tall, with poles in hand they never fall. They vault the chasms wide and grand, their bravery takes command. Across the rivers they so glide, on trusty goats and dogs they ride. With courage bold they train all day, in woods where light and shadows play. Hobbit Rangers, oh so brave, with light lance and poles they pave the way through forests dark and deep. In the weary lands their secrets keep. The segmented pole, their tool of might, they wield it in the darkest night. Their slings they master with precision, bringing foes to quick decision. In fellowship they march as one, their legends in the making spun. Through valleys green and mountains crest, the hobbit heart stands up to test. Hobbit Rangers, oh so brave, with light lance and poles they pave the way through forests dark and deep. In the weary lands their secrets keep. Hobbit Rangers, oh so brave, with light lance and poles they pave the way through forests dark and deep. In the weary lands their secrets keep. In the weary lands their secrets keep.